Alright, so today I'm going to show you how to make the chocolate croissants. Now, when you practice these in class, half the class is going to do bagels and half the class is going to do chocolate croissants. However, if you don't make the chocolate croissants, it's still important that you know how to make them, even though you may not practice them during the time your teacher gives you for them because you're making the bagels. You need to know how to make them because they are very difficult, and we will make them for breakfast events, these chocolate croissants, or we can just make regular croissants without the chocolate. It's kind of versatile in that way. But the ones we're going to show you how to make are chocolate croissants, and the key is to serve them for like a continental breakfast with the bagels. Okay? So we're going to start by, in a kitchen mixer, we are going to mix together 2 3/4 cup of flour. Okay? So that's 1 cup that I've measured. And here's 2 cups. Now this is a rich dough because we're going to be adding butter to it. So like with bagels or with the focaccia bread or pizza crust, you don't really add fat to it, and this is going to have a lot of fat. And that's why these chocolate croissants are so good. Alright? So now 3/4 cup, and this is 1/4 cup, so I'm going to add this in 3 times. So a lot of times students forget over the summer or over the semesters. What's 3/4 cup? It's 1/4 cup 3 times, or 1/2 and 1/4. Okay? Now to this is a straight mix method recipe. So what you're used to in almost every other yeast bread recipe that we've ever done is you proof your yeast separately with warm water. This recipe does not have you doing that. It has you adding everything to the bowl and then just crossing your fingers that it works. But it should be fine. This isn't that hard of a dough recipe. So to this I'm going to add 1 tablespoon of instant yeast. And I'm not proofing it separately, so it's different than what you're used to. And then I'm going to add 1/4 cup of sugar. And I've already mixed my 1 1/4 teaspoons of salt into my sugar. And then I am going to just mix this, just to combine it very lightly. Okay, so we are good there. And then I'm going to add in my milk, and I'm using 1 1/4 cups of milk, and I'm using whole milk. So very slowly, I'm going to add in my milk. The whole milk has all the fat, and that's what makes these so good. The red cap. You could use 2% or skim, so you're just not going to have the same texture. I'm going to stop this just to break up the size. And like I said, when you add the yeast and all the ingredients to the flour at once, it's called the straight mix method. I'm just going to mix it, and we'll be right back. Alright, so if you look at my dough, it's come away from the sides. It's still very wet, and it's supposed to be like a wetter dough than what it's not a stiff dough. And then the last thing that I'm going to add to this is 2 tablespoons of butter. Now, this is not a recipe that you want to add margarine in its place. You want to use the butter, or else it cooks funny, it separates, so you want to use butter. It's not one that's good for separating. And it tells you to cut this into tiny chunks. And the reason why you want to cut it into tiny chunks is because you are going to add these into the dough, and you are going to have them melt essentially into the dough, creating like flaky layers. In addition to, you're going to have this whole couple-day process of folding and making even more flaky layers, but this is going to start the process of making the layers. So essentially I'm just like chopping up the butter. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it on like a 4 medium, and I'm going to start adding in the butter. And I'm going to keep mixing this until all the butter is pretty much melted. I'm going to stop it for a sec just to get the butter piece incorporated. And then add the remaining. one part of the dough. I'm going to stack it with some of these pieces of butter. I'm just going to kind of smear. And then I'm going to let it mix. We'll be right back when all the butter is melted. If you look at this, all my butter has been incorporated, so I'm just going to take this out. Like so. Now it's a sticky dough, and that's fine. So what I'm going to do is just make sure it's ready to go. And then now, I'm just going to bring this over here. And I'm going to take out some of my plastic wrap. Sorry, it's stuck. You know what a pain in the butt the plastic wrap is. And I'm going to put my dough right on this. Now this is not going to rise a ton. You're going to be rising it over time when you're folding and shaping it. So this will expand a little bit, but not what you're used to. It won't like double in size. My shears. My plastic wrap. Then what I'm going to do is when you start shaping this, like when you make your pinwheel cookies in Culinary Basics, you want it to get cold as like a square. So it is helpful is when you are putting it in the fridge that you're putting it in like a square, because then it will be easier for you to roll out. Okay, so now we're going to put this in the fridge and you're going to let it rest overnight. We'll be back to show you the butter square and the shaping and lots of other stuff. Alright, so now for these chocolate croissants, if you ever had like a truly homemade croissant, not those croissants out of a roll, they're very, very, very flaky, and you can see the flakes and they rise and they're just beautiful. So to get that, you have to make this butter square, and it kind of gets incorporated into the center of the dough, and then you do all this shaping and it really creates these layers of butter. So to make your butter square, it calls for 3 sticks, which is a cup and a half, and you are going to just literally use your work surface. Okay, so make sure it has been very clean before you start working, which mine is clean. And put it all out there. And then I am going to use a dough scraper. This works best. You can use a straight edge, you can use a rubber scraper, anything like that would work. It's just something to kind of work the butter in place and smash it together. So I'm just cutting this like so. And you want it room temperature. Doing this with cold butter would work, it just takes longer. Okay. So I have my butter all ready to go. And then you're going to sprinkle on the top 2 tablespoons of flour. All-purpose flour works just fine. So now what you're going to do is you are going to combine the 2 together by just cutting and smashing. So as you can see, I'm just smashing, and my butter's still kind of, it's room temperature on the outside, but the center is still kind of cold. So you just want to keep it all in one viable spot and just keep smashing. So I'll be right back. So I've incorporated all the flour, so you can't even see the flour anymore, so that's what you want. So then what you're going to do is I'm just going to scrape all this up, and I'm going to bring it over to my station where I'm going to cut this, or I'm going to place it on plastic and then cut it. So what you're going to do is I want this to be like a 7 by 7 square essentially. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it would be helpful if you're close. So I'm going to start forming this. your teacher will have rulers out to double check. And I'm just going to double check it with my ruler, so I'll be right back. Alright, so I measured this, and it's just about 7 inches by 7 inches. And I can like get thickness and fix up to make my sides straighter when I put the plastic wrap on it. I'm going to cut this. And the reason why you're doing this is this, as I said at the beginning, this is going to go in the center of your dough, and you're going to almost like fold this into like the center and like fold it over like a shirt. So it's, when you put this in here, like to make it exactly 7 by 7, it will be much easier when you are shaping your dough. So before we do anything, I'm just going to double check to make sure it's about 7 by 7, and it's just there. So now I'm just going to kind of fill this in. Now this needs to be like pretty much very cold when you work with it, with the dough. So you're gonna put this in the fridge. If you're doing this like right away in the period, which I don't know if you would actually do that, you could put this in the freezer to make it really cold, but the fridge works just fine. So we'll be back to show you the shape. All right, so we are back with day 2 of the chocolate croissants, and as I said at the beginning, when we made the dough in this fabulous butter square, this is a long process. So today, day 2, your main goal is you're rolling this out several times. And you're actually going to need, and I would prep this when you're prepping the dough in the butter square, so lots of multitasking. You're going to need lots of templates. You don't need to use a template, but I just think it's easier. So you're going to need an 11-inch template. It doesn't have to be perfect, just round about. You're going to need a 14-inch template, and then you're going to need a 20-inch template. And I made these templates with just some parchment paper. You only need 1 piece for these 2. This one's going to need 2 pieces because you're going to have to tape it together. So you're going to need all of those. Okay? Now in your recipe, if you take a look at this, and I'm following along just so I make sure I'm always doing this right, you're going to be looking at pictures to help guide you. So instead of keep going to your teacher saying, is this right, is this right? Just follow the pictures. Okay? And that's exactly what I'm going to do. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open up my dough, and it's pretty sticky because it's a rich dough, so there's all that butter in it. So I'm gonna flour up my hands so I can take some of this dough off, and I'm gonna put this directly onto a floured surface, and I'll be right back. All right, so you're just gonna want to rework your dough just to make it semi-firm, because right now it's pretty sticky from taking it off that. You can't get all the dough off the plastic wrap, it's fine. Just throw it away. Okay. So I'm just bringing this up to room temperature, and I've let this sit out at room temperature. Your teacher will probably take it out for you for the class period just to help that process so it's easier to work with. So we are good. There, let me just, okay. So now I'm ready to start rolling this out. Make sure you have enough flour under here or else it will get sticky because you still have all those butter pieces in this dough and it will stick to the table. So you want to make sure you have enough flour, not too much flour to completely dry it out, but enough flour. Okay? Now the first thing you're going to do is you're going to roll this piece of dough into the 11-inch template. So I'm going to start by doing that. Lightly flouring up and then start pressing it out. Like so. And if you look closely at this, you can see some of the butter pieces that didn't completely melt, and that's fine, because with all this rolling we're going to be doing on this day, they'll melt. I have a piece that's just separate. I'm just going to throw that away so I don't hung it. Okay. So now I'm almost there. And remember, it's just a template. So if it's just about 11 by 11, it's not, if it's, a little over, at this point it's fine. You just want it about. Because I'm not shaping these yet, like into the actual croissants. Alright. we are good to go. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my butter square, take this off. Sorry, it was sticking. Unwrap your butter square. Be careful because it's very soft. Shouldn't be too soft, it shouldn't melt out. It should still be whole, but I have had it at room temperature. And I'm going to put it on here on on an angle, so like a diamond. Just like so. And then peel this back. If you take all the plastic wrap off, it's gonna be you're never gonna get it whole again like so. Alright, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna bring this part forward. Like so. This part here, if it breaks, it's fine. So I'm just wrapping the butter inside. Okay, and it's sticking to the bottom, and that's just because I just need more flour. Okay, and I'll be right. So we're back, and I have finished wrapping my butter square. And what I was noticing was this flour, because it's pretty sticky, it was really dissolving up all my flour. So I put a little bit more down, and I just keep pressing it. And what's happening right now is I'm breaking up those butter pieces within this, and I am going to roll this out, but just to help the process, I'm just starting to press with my hand, because my hand's a little bit warm. So it's going to start melting that butter right into the dough. Now, the reason why we're doing this long process, we're not just rolling it out like what you see with the dough in a can, is this is going to create those flaky, beautiful layers. Okay? So now what you're going to do is you are going to roll it out to a 14-inch square. Okay? So use that as your guide. Because you're using the butter's in the middle or in the center of this dough, don't press too hard or else the butter is going to spill out of the dough and you're going to have fullness. Okay? So I'm just lightly pressing. You don't have to press with all your might. And now at this point my dough is pretty much at room temperature, so it's moving pretty nicely. And because I had that square when I folded my butter in, it's pretty much maintaining that square-like shape. Again, it doesn't have to be a perfect square, but it's maintaining the shape. Okay? Okay, so I'm really big, and that's fine. I can just press it in a little bit. We're good to go. Okay? So now what you're going to do is we are going to fold this over by 1/3, like so, and then fold it over by 1/3 here, and then I'm going to fold it this way, and then fold it again. Okay? And then what you're going to do is you're going to wrap this up in plastic wrap, and you're going to place it in the freezer. Now, because we only have allotted 1 day for you to do all this creating of layers, you're going to wrap it in your plastic wrap and put it in the freezer. Let it rest for like 10 minutes, just to kind of start let it cool a little. You'll take this back out. You'll roll it again to 14 inches. And then you'll actually do it again. So you're rolling it to 14 inches 3 times. Okay? And then once you're done with that, you're done for the day. Alright? So we'll be right. So I've just taken this out of the fridge, or out of the freezer, and I've unrolled it, and you can see it's starting to, I'm creating the layers by folding it, and then now I'm going to re-roll it. So this is re-roll number 2. So I'm just going to start rolling it. And at this point, it's going to be a little bit harder to roll because I just created all these layers, and you can see as I'm rolling it out, I'm creating those fabulous layers. And you're going to see, you're going to see all of that when you bake these. So the reason why this is breaking is because that was a butter spot. So to fix that up, first I'm going to put a little bit of flour under that, just to soak all that up. And I'm just going to fold it under. So it's an easy fix. You don't have to start all over. And it probably did that because I was pressing too hard. gonna keep rolling this out. Remember, it's second roll of 14 inches. And I'm seeing the butter that getting cold or getting really soft, so you're gonna want to make sure you put more flour on there. Just a little more. Straighten that out. Okay. All right. So I'm okay. So I'm gonna. Sticking because of flour, so just I'm gonna do the same thing. Bring this up. Okay, you can see it's getting very soft, so I'm just gonna sprinkle some flour on that, and then I'm gonna bring this up again. Again, all that butter. Sprinkle some flour, and then I'm going to fold this up. Press. Fold this up. Press. See, it's a little bit bigger this time. That's because all those layers are stacking, so that's what you want. I'm going to put this back into the freezer for another 10 minutes, and then we'll re-roll for our third time. We'll be right back. Alright, so this is going to be my third rollout to be 14 inches, and I'm just about there. Remember, we're creating those layers. And I let this get pretty cold. That's why you keep putting it in the freezer, and that's creating the flakiness. You can see the layers of butter. Okay. So we're just gonna perfect this a little. Okay. So this is our last time. So fold it over. Fold this over. And then one more time. And then one more time up like so. And then you'll wrap. This is your last thing for day 2. So now you're going to wrap this in plastic wrap and put it in the refrigerator overnight. So we'll be back to show you day 3. Okay, so this is day 3. And as you can see, it's really puffed up a lot. It's cold still from being in the fridge. So now I'm going to start rolling this out. And yesterday on day 2 I've developed tons of layers. So this is going to be a little bit more difficult to roll out just because you've created so many components of this. So you're just going to start rolling it out. And here's where you are going to use the 20-inch piece. So I want it to be 20 inches. So I have some way to go. So we'll be right back. So I've rolled this out. We're on day 3. And this is about 20 by 20. Now, if you can see here, it's not perfect, but as I kept rolling, it kept breaking. So I decided I'm gonna stop. And you'll have to make that judgment call if you don't think yours is getting perfect. If it's too hard to work with, then simply stop, okay? So, what you're gonna do is you're going to divide this into 4 quadrants. And I'm just using a paring knife. You can use a butter knife, just like so, okay? Then what you're going to do is you are going to divide each quadrant into about 3. The ones on the end are not going to be as perfect, and that's fine. Okay, just like so. This one's kind of right. Then what you're going to do is these ones that are on the end that I don't think are as pretty. I'm just going to take them and I'm not using them, okay? If I don't think that it's a perfect rectangle, then I'm not going to use it, okay? So then what you're going to do is each of these you are going to go through and cut on a diagonal. Now your goal is for them to be as consistent as possible, but as much as you use a ruler, it's probably not going to happen. So you're just going to have some that they're not going to all look the same. But if we're doing these for a catering event, you pick and choose which ones you think are good, because we'll make a couple batches of these. But in a bakery or something like that, then you would have like a whole machine that rolls the croissants so they all look identical. So some of these bigger, it's fine. And this one's not as perfect, but I can probably get at least one out of it. This is extra dough. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just using semi-sweet chocolate, and you're just going to use a little. You can chop it up or you can leave it whole, it's up to you. And then you are going to start rolling. Like so. Okay. Now if you look at this, you can't see as closely, but you see a lot of layers. Alright? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put this on my baking sheet. Like so. And I'm just going to keep going until I have rolled out all of my, or put chocolate in all of these. So I'll show you one more, and then we'll be right back. So, you're going to start off with, I'm going to use this big one. Put a couple. You can do about a teaspoon is perfect. And then, push in. And here we go. This one was a little bit bigger on the side, so I'm going to keep it rounded. I'll show you what I mean. Like so. So I want that one to be a little bit more like that too. So they're all going the same direction. Okay. They will puff up a little bit, so you want to leave space in between. So we'll be back and I'll show you the last step. Alright, so we're back and all the croissants are on here. So now what you're going to do is you're going to make them look really professional like the bagels, you're going to brush them with egg wash, and that's going to make them really golden brown. As soon as you're done brushing them with the egg wash, they're going to bake, and in the recipe it says about 45 to 60 minutes. So you'll put them in the oven and your teacher will take them out for you. So make sure you label your sheet pan, and then you'll eat them in class on the 4th day actually, so I know this is long. When they come out of the oven, you will drizzle them with chocolate. So I'll show you these when they're actually completely all done. So we'll see soon. Alright, so here are finished croissants, and now at this point what you would do is you would melt some semi-sweet chocolate, and then you would put it in a bottle, or you can with a fork and just drizzle it back and forth. For the sake of the demo, if you don't want to have the chocolate, you can simply just leave them like this, so it just has the chocolate treat in the center. It's kind of just your preference because this is practice. Now, the reason why we like to drizzle them with chocolate, like for a catering event, is so that the person knows, okay, this is a chocolate croissant. They don't just look at it like, oh, it's a croissant, they bite in and get this chocolate that they're not expecting. So that's why we like to drizzle them. So we're giving you the option. So enjoy with your friends. Thank you.